All right, so we're going to look at another special thing to do with algebra and evaluating limits. And conjugates are something that you learned back in Algebra 2 as well. They involve square roots, well, any root really, but we mostly work with square roots. So let's look at an example here. If I have the limit as x approaches 0 of the square root of x plus 1 minus 1 all over x. So again, always try plugging the number in just to see if that works, because if that works, then you're good. You don't have to do anything else. So if I put 0 in here, I get 0 over 0, which I can't use. That's indeterminate. We can't use that. So then I need to try some algebra. So when I see a square root, I can think about rationalizing or using the conjugate. And here's what you do. The conjugate is this expression, but the value in between the two terms changes. So I'm going to multiply this by the square root of x plus 1 plus 1. So that is my conjugate of the numerator. So it's exactly the same except for I have a minus and a plus. And I'm going to also multiply the denominator by the same thing, because if I do something to the numerator, I have to do the same thing to the denominator. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom of this rational function like that. And the reason that conjugates work is when I multiply this, think of FOIL. I'm going to do my first. The square root of x plus 1 times the square root of x plus 1 is just x plus 1. Then I'm going to do my outside, so this, and I'm going to do my inside, these two. They will actually cancel, because I will get plus the square root of x plus 1 for my my outside. My inside is going to give me negative 1 times this, so minus the square root of x plus 1. And then the last is going to be negative 1 times positive 1, which is minus 1. So the reason that conjugates work is your O and I of your FOIL cancel. So this was the O, this was the I, so the outside and the inside cancel. So my numerator is really x plus 1 minus 1, which I can take the plus 1 and minus 1, and I can also cancel that. So my numerator is just x. After multiplying by the conjugate, my numerator is just x. So I'm going to scroll back over here. So my numerator is x, so I have the limit as x approaches 0 of x in the numerator, and my denominator is x times this quantity in blue, so x times the square root of x plus 1 plus 1. And now, when I look at this, these are being multiplied, and this is just x, so I can actually factor this out. These cancel. So I'm going to cancel this, and I end up with the limit as x approaches 0 of 1 over the square root of x plus 1 plus 1. And now I can put 0 in. 1 over the square root of 0 plus 1 plus 1. Well, the square root of 0 plus 1 is 1, so I get 1 over 2, or 1/2 is the value of my limit. That is a conjugate. We're going to try one more. They're different, but you have done the algebra before. Okay, so let's try another conjugate, just so you have another example, because they're a little bit harder than factoring. How about the limit as x approaches 4 of the square root of x minus 3 minus 1 all over x minus 4. So again, you can try plugging in 4, but I can see from my denominator I get 0, so I'm not going to be able to just plug it in. I'm going to have to use a conjugate because it's a square root. So the conjugate of the numerator would be the square root of x minus 3 plus 1. And then I have to multiply the numerator and the denominator by that. So I'm going to do the numerator by foiling. So when I take my first terms, I get x, the square root of x minus 3 times the square root of x minus 3, which is just x minus 3. We talked about the outside this times this, and the inside will cancel, so I'm not even going to do that. And then negative 1 times 1 gives me minus 1. And if I did that right, it's x minus 3 minus 1, which just is x minus 4. So my numerator is just x minus 4. So then I'm looking at the limit as x approaches 4. My numerator was just x minus 4. My denominator, I'm just going to take this term times this term. I'm not going to multiply it, I'm just going to write it as they're being multiplied. So x minus 4 times the square root of x minus 3 plus 1. And the reason I left it like that is now you can see that this term and this term are the same, so they can cancel. So the x minus 4 and the numerator and the denominator will cancel, and you get the limit as x is approaching 4 of 1 over the square root of x minus 3 plus 1. And you get 1 over the square root of 4 minus 3 plus 1. So that's the square root of 1, and that is 1/2. They don't all come out to 1/2. It just happened that I picked 2 of them like that. So those are conjugates. There's a couple on Canvas that I'd like you to try.